Youth gun violence. It's become an epidemic across major U.S. cities, including our own. That's why Aurora Save, or Standing Against Violence Every Day, was created. But what does it mean for our city's safety, and how does it work? Here's a look at the program that's getting gang members off of our streets and onto the right path.
Almost 20 years ago now, there was a robbery one particular evening where tragically a store clerk was murdered.
December 10th, 2006, 62-year-old Judy Gallegos Burton clocked in for her nighttime shift.
It was a store clerk that many of our officers were familiar with. She was very pro-police and many of us knew her.
An attempted robbery gone bad.
I mean, obviously you carry a weapon long enough, you're probably gonna use it, you don't just sit there and look at it.
Images of the gunman captured on surveillance. That man, 23-year-old John Doubleday.
I was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole and incarcerated in 2006. So I grew up in a pretty close family. My dad would work a lot. He made sure we had everything we needed. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I feel like I had a normal childhood.
Until he got involved with the wrong crowd.
I would feel like, I don't belong, or I don't quite fit in. Like I didn't have a good solid place in the world, even though that could have been the furthest from the truth. I felt that way, so that became my reality.
So he tried to find a place where he did belong.
And that was with the substance, with the crowd that ran with the substances, and it led to a lot of risky behavior.
Ultimately playing a role in that fatal night.
I just remember being in such a dark place. My son was born. I had lost my job. I didn't have any income coming in. Before you knew it, I was in a blackout state. I remember going into the store, and I remember pulling the firearm, and then I remember the shotgun breech coming apart, and then I remember as I was trying to close it going off.
He then fled the scene.
I was a part of that, the search warrant, when we attempted to apprehend the individual responsible for that.
Later, getting caught.
At that time, my mandatory release date, I believe, was 99, 98. So I did not have any feeling that I was ever gonna see any daylight.
She is very concerned about him.
Nearly 2 decades later, Commander Hanifin has dedicated his career to identifying troubled youth, like Doubleday, early on before a crime is ever committed in our community.
Our focus are ages 13 to 25 that have a high likelihood to either be a trigger puller or a victim of gun violence.
Each week, a law enforcement group meets using data to track down those individuals.
We're looking for 2 to 3.
Lisa Batten is part of that team.
I had to do more death notifications than I can count. Going to the door and telling a mom that her 15-year-old son was shot and killed is heartbreaking.
Commander Hanifin and Batten say another piece of the puzzle are violence interrupters.
Oftentimes these are individuals that have lived experience, so they can relate to our recipients like we in law enforcement certainly cannot. So they have been in those shoes and come out the other side, and now they've committed their lives to helping others not follow that same path.
And that is where the ex-criminal and commander's worlds would collide decades later, thanks in part to John's headline-grabbing successful appeal to the Colorado Supreme Court in 2016, and thanks to an act of grace and forgiveness.
Our next recipient has access to firearms, and he also is connected to by family and friends, known group members.
My victim's daughter reached out to me. I realized that, who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. I wanted to apply these things that I learned to help people, and that was my purpose and my calling. She ended up advocating for my release. I felt like maybe she got a little bit of closure in knowing that I wasn't just wasting, my life or this possible opportunity.
Fast forward 20 years later, I met John Doubleday, who is one of the violence interrupters and preventers we work with. And here I was almost 20 years ago, one of the individuals, didn't know his name, had never met him, but I was involved with trying to apprehend him, and now we sit side by side in the same vehicle every week, going out in the community and trying to prevent another young man or woman in this community from following in those same footsteps.
Intelligence gathered from the law enforcement group is used to identify and visit the doors of those most at risk.
And really the aim of all of that contact is to stop the violence. So really trying to give that off-ramp. What can we do to support you in furtherance of your goals? Maybe it's job or education development. Maybe it is mental health services because they've experienced so much trauma. Maybe it's substance misuse recovery services, or even peer mentorship. Sometimes that can be so crucial.
This is a perfect opportunity from going to being a part of that gun violence from the city to actually being a part of the solution.
Judy Gallegos Burton's daughter said off camera she is very proud of John and supports the work. Since September of 2023, the group has selected 130 recipients with the average age of 17 and has had an 80% success rate.
Part of the reason that we wanted to implement this strategy, focused deterrence or group violence intervention, is that it's been shown to be effective nationwide in reducing group and gun violence significantly, sometimes by as much as 50%.
The traditional police response to gun crime is arrest and incarceration focused. This strategy recognizes arrest and incarceration alone is not going to solve the problem. In order to truly reduce crime, not just displace it, but to reduce crime, we have to take an intervention and prevention approach so that we can help that individual have more options in life. And that is where that concrete offer of community support and services for an individual and families is critical.